Okay, so this is gonna be a running commentary on the trade from Manchuria. Some book I picked up on Amazon. I feel extremely cheated. um, here's the summary off the back of the book. Night Train from Manchuria is a complex fictional story woven over a little-known compelling history of World War II in the Pacific. The story is plot-driven. No, it's not. And character-driven. Yeah, right. Night Train is a metaphor for the dark side of the Empire of Japan as it joined the Nazi in a world. The Nazi? What? There's only just one? Seriously? In a world war of brutal destruction, rotting roofs sawed over. Fuck. Southeast Asia. That's one word, dude. Wreaking havoc and destruction upon the people of Manchuria. Okay, dude. Okay, seriously, if you have to explain your symbolism in the back cover, you probably either think your readers are stupid or you just want to sound smart. I'm not entirely sure. Fiction. Okay, you just told us it was a fictional story in the last paragraph. Fictional story of a U.S. Strategic Services mission to destroy Japan's ability to wage biological warfare is woven over the historical. Yeah, because World War II is totally a thing that's happening right now, right in this moment. It is rich in drama. No, it's not. Action. Since when? Suspense, intrigue, redemption, friendship, and triumph over adversity, sacrifice, and love. No, it doesn't. That's a spoiler. No, that's a spoiler. There is not. The story moves from Tokyo to Pearl Harbor. No, it doesn't. To Manila, to Washington, D.C., and culminates in Manchuria. Yeah, that's just the least of your worries. Oh, I didn't know the camera was backwards. Okay, I need to rethink my life. But apparently it's written by, I guess, a retired psychotherapist who served during the Korean War in Vietnam. And yeah, apparently he has a second novel, which I'm pretty sure is also self-published. In fact, I'm very sure this is self-published because I have never heard of Ex Libris, EXLIBRIS. I'm pretty sure because there are several plot, not just the plot itself and the character. There's several terrible typos in here that either the editor was not existent, drunk, or just didn't care. So, in the case that there's an awkward spacing, I will point it out. So, without further BSing, although this might be the most enjoyable thing about it, I'll just get straight to it. I actually don't know how long this will take because Smith does not know. It's not actually number every single chapter. In fact, sometimes he just has the title of the chapter, which he's not consistent about it. I would assume it's stylistic if it means something to do with the story, but no, it's just, I have no idea what he's doing, honestly. So, book one out of, I want to say there's supposed to be 3 parts to this. There's only 2, and he just wants, which doesn't make sense because there's no reason for him to break it up. Everything that happens in this book happens within a few months of each other. Oh, okay, so there's only 2 books. I don't see why this can't just be a giant prologue. I don't know. So, Chapter 1, Blood on the Sun, December 1st, 1941. Lord Ernest Bateman. good name. Good thing his first name's not Norman. Um, wait, yeah. The British ambassador to the chrysanthemum throne of the Imperial Japan sat on a wooden swing with a dozen planted on poles in Fushimi Park, directly across the stately British embassy in the direct diplomatic district of Tokyo near the Imperial Palace. Wait, what? I'm not entirely, I don't know why he's sitting on a swing, but okay, I'll deal with it. Wearing a brilliant white shirt open at the neck and black trousers held up by suspenders, a lanky Englishman, nearly 6 feet 3 inches. Dude, if you're gonna give an exact estimate, why are you gonna say nearly? Unless you leave off the 3 inches, there's no reason to put. That's the only reason you would put nearly. But no, you do that, you say exactly. But why should I even care about his height? Is it gonna have anything to do with the story? No. Perched quietly on the swing. Dude, you just told us he was sitting on a swing. Do you need to tell us again? He might have escaped notice, hunched down and motionless, as he was between the ropes supporting the swing, except for the 4 security guards dressed in black suits with identical dark ties. Whatever. They were posted within 40 feet of the ambassador on all sides. He was accustomed to 2 security personnel in his entourage. Today, the detail was quadrupled. 4 were stationed in plain sight, 4 less obvious, moved about the park within a half block of the embassy. He thought it a probable waste of manpower, but on the other hand, there have been several political assassinations in the last few months. The Japanese military was, to put it mildly, unhappy with the British-American interventions in the affairs of the countries of Southeast Asia, especially Japan's. Seriously, South and East are one word. In June 1937, Prince Fumimaro Konoe had been appointed prime minister. His antagonism to the Western powers and his open call for Japan to boldly copy the Nazi and Italian governments' aggressive expansionist policies formed a wedge between Britain, America, and Japan. He actually uses a slash between America and Britain. This is unnecessary because you could just as easily use a comma and that'd be fine. That's how you do such things. By 1941, the strain between Japan and the Western democracies had grown to insurmountable proportions as Japan's intention of ruling Asia became evident. The ambassador had come to the park to take a break from pressures mounting around him. Every day should be one word. There was a new crisis. Today, an urgent directive from Town Downing Street arrived by courier. President Roosevelt, under considerable political pressures from a national anti-war movement, had rejected Japan's request for a high-level meeting with the Japanese Prime Minister. The meeting was to discuss the mounting crisis over Japan's invasion of Manchuria and the continuation of the war in China. Japan's movement across Asia threatened colonial interests of several of the Western powers. Because of lack of public and political support at home, Roosevelt had little bargaining power. He ruled out further diplomatic efforts of the American ambassador. Wait, isn't he supposed to be British? I'm confused already. He ruled out further diplomatic efforts of the American. Even so, Roosevelt and the British Prime Minister wanted Lord Bateman to quietly make one last effort to appeal directly to the Emperor to relinquish Japan's gains in China. The embargo depriving Japan of a variety of industrial materials was, in fact, dangerous. However, no Western power wanted to further conflict with Japan. Bateman's exceptionally good relationship with the Emperor, though formal, had given him some hope. He's an emperor. Why would you need to be informal with the emperor? Oh, over the last 2 years, he had settled into an unusual relationship built on their mutual love of the sciences. On several occasions, the emperor had offered private audiences that involved serious discussions of the emperor's hobby, biology. This the emperor had never done for anyone, especially not for a foreigner. Okay. In the early hours of Bateman's hope vanished with a word from the imperial palace. The emperor would not see the ambassador. A meeting had been arranged instead for the afternoon with Prince Chichibu, the emperor's brother. Chichibu had been instrumental in convincing the emperor to sign a treaty with Germany and Italy. The emperor's use of Prince Chichibu, who Bateman knew to be extremely anti-Western, not particularly close to the emperor, was ominous. Bateman was hurt by the emperor's decision. They quickly arranged a meeting and treated him. They wanted something. Okay, time out here. He basically just piled us up with a bunch of information, and what I'm guessing is supposed to be characterization, but it just comes across as being a pile of information. This is just one of those kinds of moments where this is kind of a running thing with Smith, is he has a tendency to tell us and not show us anything. Like you'll see later on, he'll say things like he felt this way, and it's much better for him to just show us that this person is feeling X and X way. This is how he feels about this. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. To the right, the security guard to his right coughed. The ambassador smiled as he pulled himself up and off the swing. And he makes a character break, because also Smith doesn't seem to is afraid of having speech be tagged directly to whoever's saying stuff. I don't get it, because it makes it really hard to understand who's speaking. It's really annoying. I was lost in thought, but... Wait, what? I was lost in thought, but thanks for the heads up. I wonder, could you have them send? Could you have them send? He means sent. Really, dude? My 11 o'clock over. I think the American Red Cross representative is waiting. I feel like taking a walk, clearing cobwebs. Of course, sir. It would help us if you'd stick to the park and only this block. So you really think there's danger? I'm afraid so, sir. The ambassador slipped back onto the swing. He kept an eye on the embassy's front door, but his mind was on his young daughter, a nurse serving British troops in Singapore. The British High Command in Singapore didn't seem to be worried, but Bateman was beginning to think they should be. Sadly, he thought, the crisis would continue to escalate. War seemed inevitable, and he knew it would include Singapore early on. He made a mental note to call his daughter. Yeah, you would think this actually has something to do with the rest of the story. It never comes up again. The tall figure, a young man, came out of the embassy, looked up and walked into the park. Seeing the ambassador, he clutched his file tightly in his left hand, waved with his right as he rapidly crossed the street. Thinking the British were going to have an audience with the Emperor, the Red Cross representative in Tokyo had been sent to the British ambassador by the American ambassador at the urging of the State Department. Army Intelligence and the British MI5. Wow, you think you got the word ambassador in there enough? And Red Cross? Jeez. The Red Cross representative was, in fact, the chief of the U.S. Army Intelligence for Asia. His mission was far more crucial than it appeared on the surface. It was a mission that would set into motion a joint American and British intelligence plot to destroy Japan's secret biological and chemical warfare program. He was there to make certain the ambassador was well informed about Japan's intentions. You know, there are more skilled ways of integrating this into what's going on. You don't have to tell us everything, Smith. It's... yeah, I don't see why we have to be piled up with all this information right now when you could just easily just kind of write into the conversation, make it easier to actually have it connect with what's being said. Bateman accepted the Red Cross report and asked the young man to walk along with him on the path by the park. Quickly reviewing the report, he looked over to see the young man appeared subdued, somber even. At the last line of the report, he stopped reading and looked up. Your name again? Coffin, sir. Yin Coffin. Yin, I'm seeing the Emperor's brother today. I'm afraid he has enormous influence with the Emperor. I can't promise it will do any good. In truth, I think the Emperor and his brother are not that close. I very much doubt it would help, but he'll hear every detail, every single detail in your report. I'm really astonished. I have no idea the horror they're up to in Manchuria. The ambassador knew far more than he was letting on. You think? He thought to cheer the young man by exaggerating the usefulness of his information. I think we kinda got that from the speech. Who's talking right now? The incident in November. When exactly was that? The 25th, sir. 5 days ago. We're still counting the dead in Changte province. Have you been with the Red Cross long? You're very young to... Ian interrupted. I've been in China since 1937. What you see in that report is nothing compared to what I've witnessed. The Japanese have pillaged, raped young and old, murdered children armed with their mothers. They've killed thousands, not just defenders, but also the helpless. The Japanese army has experimented in Manchuria with biological and chemical weapons for a decade. Their expertise in biological and chemical warfare will pose a major threat to the Allies when the war comes. War surely will come. Because of this advantage, which grows by the day, the Japanese government will certainly do nothing to control the army. Our government and yours seem to think that it is imperative we make the effort. I suppose you can't argue with that. Seriously, you really gotta repeat chemical and biological weapons and biological warfare several times. I think he could have just cut that out, made it less wordy, and still could have conveyed the same amount. But then there are certain details that he completely glossed over, like, I don't know, I just would like to hear more about the horrors. And he does that later on where they somehow get a video of what's going on. Now, how the US even came upon that video to begin with, I am not sure, because the US never, from what I can remember, the US actually never really got information until post-war. I'm actually not the one to ask. But either way, I still think that's a really clumsy way to set up the story. Bateman, suddenly alert, thought there was more to Coffin than was apparent. Oh, for fuck's sake. Do you really need to tell us this? Why do you need to tell us all the time, Smith? I think we can figure it out on our own. He rolled up the report, folded his arms, crushing. Fuck! You just said he rolled up the report. Just say crushing it or something. He leaned back and stood tall. And thinking this information was not easy to come by. I get the feeling that you represent more than the Red Cross, Mr. Kaufman. Kaufman had not expected to find the ambassador so imperceptive. Of course not, because this is just too convenient. Accustomed to treading carefully to hide his cover, he needs a comma there. His response flowed easily. We sometimes pick up information from the American Army intelligence people and your own MI5. I can't be more specific about our sources, but clearly the Japanese have prepared contingency plans for chemical and biological warfare. I believe the attacks in China are essentially test runs. The Japanese army will not cease these experiments for any reason. Whatever is happening diplomatically, the Japanese Imperial Army is preparing for war. Eventually that war will include biological weapons. How stupid do you think we are? I think we can figure out that that's what they're doing. You've said maybe I should just take a shot every time he repeats a phrase on one page. I mean, seriously, if this is what? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times he's repeated that phrase about the same thing, and it's completely unnecessary. We figured out since last page that this is what's being talked about. This is so stupid. Besides that is not. They had no actual idea of this, really. Although we did know that at some point we did find out the Germans were doing their own nuclear bomb testing, but that is a totally different thing altogether. And anyway, Bateman was stunned. He had no such intelligence, but it gave credence to the British High Command that Japanese Imperial Army in China was out of control, acting on its own. To give himself time to think, Bateman stopped along the park's path and took a seat on a bench. He motioned for Kaufman to sit down beside him. Bateman leaned over, speaking as much to himself as to Kaufman. He asked, "Is it possible, you think? Does British Army intelligence have evidence of preparation for chemical and biological warfare? Would Japan dare?" Ian Kaufman, thinking of unbelievable atrocities against his own people in Europe, shrugged his shoulders. Europe has nothing to do with this. No, I'm not gonna say anything. Sadness flashed across his face and settled in his eyes. He looked away from Bateman, rested hands on his legs, and noticed his fingers trembling. He quickly folded his hands together to contain the shaking, coughed to clear his throat, and waited for his heart. Slow, it's pounding. And now we're just going to go on to another paragraph discussing his past that has absolutely nothing to do with the story. Kaufman had worked for the United States Army Intelligence for over a decade. Granted U.S. citizenship at 26, he kept dual Danish citizenship. He just said that. Whatever. Most of his assignments were in Europe, including Denmark. Whatever. By the time Coffin had left Denmark for an assignment in Paris, all of his family, his father, his 3 younger brothers, and sister, had been transported by train into the heart of Germany. He had not seen any of them since. He had no doubts about the Nazis' intention to annihilate the Jewish race. Wait, what? I'm really confused here. So is he Jewish? Wait, maybe I'm just having a dumb moment. I just don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that this has absolutely nothing to do with the story because this is not really mentioned again. This is all about Japan, so I don't know why this is. I don't know. Fuck. This is dumb as shit. Atrocities committed by the Japanese in Manchuria would, he was certain, be perpetrated throughout Asia. It was clear. Seriously? Seriously? The Japanese would gobble up East Asia. Seriously, Southeast is one word. Southeast Asia, and there would be no one to stop them. Kaufman turned back to Bateman, who sat quite still, waiting attentively. He knew he had touched a nerve. Do you really need to fucking tell us every single fucking time? Kaufman spoke slowly. They have, of course. Oh, for fuck's sake. Do you have to use this phrase all the damn time? They have, of course, already used biological, chemical warfare in China. I doubt this is news to you. But we're really asking, will they use these weapons against the Allies? It's supposed to be a question mark. In London, in California, and Washington. And I see that Russia's not in there. Okay. That's cool. Well, why wouldn't they, Lord Bateman? The Japanese have more regard for Westerners than they do for the Chinese. The Japanese believe they are children of the living God, the Emperor. This is incomprehensible to Westerners, and nevertheless a fact. They admire what the Third Reich has accomplished in Europe. They can do with Asia whatever they wish. I'm just gonna make sure it's okay. The Japanese army has been burying their Chinese victims of plague in mass graves for over a decade. The British League of Nations have condemned them for their invasion of China, and the world stood by in horror at their barbaric treatment of the Japanese. No one has stopped them. Kaufman found himself choking back, overwhelming emotion as he added, just as no one has stopped the Nazis. Bateman sat for a long time. He too was thinking of Europe and, for fuck's sake, seriously, and realized Kaufman's view of Japan's behavior in China had to be colored by what was happening to the Jews in Europe. He wanted to comfort the young man, but could not think of what to say. Without, he just told us he could. Oh, whatever. He offered Kaufman a chance to act directly. He knew it was a hopeless gesture, but he wanted to do something to lift the young man's spirits. Aside from the report, what would you do? What would you like me to say to Prince Chichibu? Keep in mind that the Emperor might be sheltered from what's happening, though I do have my doubts. Kaufman smiled himself and leaned over and spoke with authority. The Emperor consented to the creation, oh for fuck's sake, to the creation of biological warfare units in Manchuria. This is making me want to stop reading BIOHAZARD. You know for certain he has consented to nearly 300 separate uses of poison gas on Chinese troops since 1937. I don't think there is much hope of getting him close down to the experiments. close down these experiments. We have to make the effort. Let's remind the Emperor that he is the only one who can stop the Imperial army. Touched by Kaufman's simplistic, heartfelt gesture, Bateman reached out to touch Ian on the shoulder. He patted his shoulder, then pulled the report from under his arm. Carefully, he smoothed it out. You can be sure I'll do the best I can with this. And he meant it. You couldn't imply this by what he says. Late in the afternoon, the embassy limousine, flying the British flag off the front fenders, was preceded and followed by security vehicles. The sleek black limousine entered a side gate of the Imperial Palace. The ambassador stepped onto a covered portico, hidden from public view by immaculately trimmed foliage and hedges sculpted into perfect squares. He stopped for a moment to view, off to his right, the Imperial Palace gardens that stretched out around the palace over 30 acres. The hedges, you need a comma there, trees and flowers were surreal in their perfection. Not a leaf was left out of place. What a shame they're seen by so few, he thought. Briefly of Coffin and how impossible it was for the Western mind to conceive of an entire nation believing in the deepest sense that their emperor was. You misspelled divine, and frankly, that's not even supposed to be capitalized. Seriously, he spelled it like D-E and then vine. It's D-I vine. On the other hand, how is that so different in the way the Germanic mind perceives itself as a member of the super race? Hitler is no less a god. How insane the world has become. Leaving the security detail on the portico, Lord Bateman stepped into a narrow hallway. The walls are devoid of decoration, the narrow space unfurnished except for a mat covering the floor. Palace Chamberlain, in a formal black coat and grey pinstripe trousers, led him through the dark passage with abrupt turns at odd intervals. They arrived at a single door opening into a large, huge, low-ceilinged room roughly 600 square feet. Even with the low ceiling, Prince Chichibu appeared tiny in the massive room. He came from around a simple but elegantly carved desk, smiling. He took Bateman's hand and shook it gently. You better not call him Miss Master either. Yeah, I'll give you like 5 seconds to figure that out. It was good of you to come on short notice. I want to see you before I leave this evening for Kyoto. His Majesty was waiting for me for a family gathering. British intelligence reports, which Bateman read each morning, indicated the Emperor was in the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. In surprise of the lion wondered about its intended purpose. I'm happy for the opportunity to visit on behalf of the British government, as well as the President of the United States. Prince Chichibu's smile vanished. With a studied and easy grace, he pushed the armchair closer to the small couch, wishing for Bateman to sit across from him as he took a seat on the couch. Where the hell else is he going to sit? Is he going to sit on the table? What the fuck? The servant immediately brought in a tea service. For 20 minutes, the two, according to custom, relaxed and comfortably discussed the weather, their travels, and offered polite comments and inquiries about their family. Both were masters at steering carefully away from the affairs of the state. Finishing his tea and making sure the ambassador had finished as well, Chichibu rose and went around to sit behind the desk, signaling the end to the pleasantries. Ambassador Bateman moved into a chair across the prince, sat up straight, crossed his legs, and dropped the leather pad onto his lap and began. President Roosevelt, and the British government are the most desirous of finding a solution to the current crisis. Prince Chichibu, without expression, waited. The ambassador let his opening statement stand. Chichibu nodded. You understand that I speak only for the Emperor, tentatively at best, not for all of the government. Understood. Baton smiled and nodded. I knew Chichibu would speak for fuck's sake, you just said that, Smith. I'm not even gonna give that, waste time on that, because you just heard that. Chichibu leaned back, glanced down at a single sheet of paper on the desk, and leaned forward as if reading from the paper. Maybe we should be glad he doesn't show us everything. On July 25th, the United States established an oil and steel embargo and stole Japan's funds in American banks. The British and Dutch followed within days. Japan's industry has been badly damaged. The economy is suffering. Prince Chichibu lifted the paper, held it for a moment, then let it fall on the desktop. He slowly withdrew a small cigar from a wooden box, lit it carefully, filling the cigar slowly to light it from all sides, giving time for his accusatory statements to register. Prince leaned back as the smoke curl lingered in the air between them. He lowered his face to whisper. Presumably, the crisis will be resolved if the Quantum Army withdraws from China. Ambassador Bateman had no need, but he pretended to look at the pad notes he held on his knee. That is the first condition. The Quantum Army occupied France Indochina on, I'm going to assume the 2nd of July, which is but 2 July. They must withdraw. Slavery in Asia for Japan is unacceptable. Chichibu smiled, lifted both hands above the desk in a gesture of helplessness and spoke quieter still. Those are matters you must take to the government. His Majesty is the spiritual leader of the Japanese people. You must advise President Roosevelt he would do well to reconsider his refusal to enter negotiations with the Prime Minister. Is all Bateman could do to keep a straight face. Chichibu, of all the Emperor's relatives, was the throne's primary constant anti-Western advisor. You know well, Hirohito was the most powerful individual wielding control over the military. The ambassador sighed, giving notice to Chichibu and his patient had its limits. He continued. President Roosevelt and his Majesty's government are aware. I don't even know who's speaking anymore. President, I'm just gonna read it because I can't figure it out. But I could try and make it easy to understand who's talking, but I can't even do that. President Roosevelt and His Majesty's government are aware of the Meiji Constitution places a military directly under command of the Emperor. The Japanese government has no powers over the military, and the government has made no effort to exercise such powers, especially as regards to the Quantum Marine China. One voice alone will rid the crisis, that of the Emperor. Lord Bateman smiled inside. The Coffin's message had been delivered after all, and it was not so simplistic. It cut to the core of the American-British position, but he was also thinking it was futile. Prince Chichibu appeared to be thoughtful, but Bateman could see he was nervously preoccupied with an elegant four-paneled golden screen set before a wall of windows facing the Imperial Gardens. He considered the screen might be hiding a stenographer and discounted it immediately. Seriously, he spelled immediately without an I. Once again, I'm pretty sure there was no editor for this book. Otherwise, things like this would not happen so easily. It didn't explain Chichibu's preoccupation. No, it doesn't. The Prince shouldn't even be capitalized. Abruptly turned his attention away from the screen and looked firmly at the ambassador. His delicate fingers, with surprising force, ground the end of his cigar ashes inside a small, exquisite bowl of brilliant white porcelain. Bateman took the force and the obvious pleasure Chichibu took in action as a warning of what was to come. It is clearly an impossibility for the Emperor to end the war in China or to reverse the Kuomintang's army's victories in Indochina. There it was, in plain English, expected, nevertheless stunning. By the way, nevertheless is one word. War is inevitable. Ambassador and Prince Chichibu stared across the desk at one another, each one aware of the meaning of the profound refusal. Chichibu, with a slight smile, barely tugging his thin lips, was thinking the British and Dutch would have no stomach for a two-front war, and the Americans had no appetite for war in Europe or Asia. Japan would control all of Asia. Bateman, accustomed to the decades of international power, the British Empire could not think of the tiny island of Japan as more than a minor threat, though they could be troublesome and more dangerous in the short term because of the British engagement in the fight with Nazi Germany for its survival. On the other hand, Churchill's fervent hopes could come to fruition. Japan's entry into the war would give Britain an ally, America. It would be a partnership with the most powerful military forces in the world and Britain's only chance of national survival. Even so, the thought of the Pacific War adding to the misery of the British Empire angered Bateman to the core. He was somewhat glad of the Red Cross report, grateful that it provided him focus for his anger. Leaning across the desk, he made no effort to hide his anger, but spoke forcefully, placing emphasis on every word. He pounced. So wait, he jumped over the desk? There is one more area I would like to touch upon, both for Britain and the United States. I dare say, which is one word, or in the entire world. Bateman's emphasis on the word. Which one? Oh, civilized. Bateman's emphasis on the word civilized was unmistakable. Implying serious consequences, he added, it's a matter of grave importance for the future of Japan. Prince Chichibu's eyes went directly to the screen, but he quickly returned to Bateman. He waited. Bateman began his accusations. In 1932, Dr. Shiro Ishii expanded a biological and chemical warfare program from Tokyo Hospital into Manchuria. By 1939, the most massive biological warfare facility in the world was completed under his direction. The largest program is Pingfan, just southeast of Harbin in Manchuria, which you now know as Manchukuo. Prince Chichibu, looking relieved, had a steady answer. Dr. Ishii built a water purification plant. I believe that was Pingfang. Ambassador Bateman ignored the lie. Certain Prince knew full well it was a lie. Raising his voice, he continued. On the 4th of October of 1940, plague bacteria was dropped in That's a misspelling, I'm pretty sure. Xian in Chechen province, 28th of October in Ningbo, and October 20th at Jinhua. In January 1941, 11 months ago, plague was dropped in Xiyuan, Ningxia, in Shanxi provinces. 4 days ago in Changde, the plague was distributed by the Kuomintang army. 2,000 Chinese civilians were murdered. Remembering the summer, Mr. Kaufman's remark, Ambassador added, "We're still counting." Prince Chichibu's face hardened, clenched his hands together, pulled them apart, and planted his left thumb on his bottom lip as if to lock his mouth tightly shut. Planted his left thumb. So like this? Or does he mean like this? I'm having trouble imagining this, but that has absolutely nothing to do with shit. The meeting had yielded something useful. Smooth-tongued Prince was speechless. In any case, the warning was clear. Bateman finished with a demand. The civilized world demands these atrocities cease. Bateman rose, handed the Red Cross report to Chichibu without another word, and turned to find his way out. He walked down the length of the room, at the edge of the golden screen. Through the glass of the windows, not fully covered by the screen, he glimpsed in reflection the unmistakable image of Hirohito. He was a small figure, his tiny face weighed down by heavy dark-framed glasses. His back toward the screen, Hirohito looked out onto the Imperial Gardens. The inscrutable living god did not move. And that's chapter 1. I did not catch as many grammar mistakes as I did just now, and it really worries me. Anyway, that's all I have time for today, guys. So let's stay tuned for more.